Hi there. So, as many of you are aware, there was a horrendous, yet another horrendous shooting that took place in Texas today at a church. Just an update on that as of 7:50 this evening. The reports are 26 people are reported to have been murdered, including the pastor's teenage daughter. This will be a link in the description box, and this is being taken from the publication Town Hall. I feel like they have a decent publication. They're a more conservative news outlet. And I'm going to play this. Hopefully it won't skip too much, because I think this gives a much closer reality view to what an organic event like this looks like, with victims and news stories coming out. But first, before I play this, I'd like to say that emotions aside, because of course it's to say it's tragic is an understatement. But I'd stepped away from the internet for several hours earlier, and when I got online and I heard this buzz about something happened in Texas, I went to go find out what was going on. Initially, I couldn't find anything about it. Initially, it was very difficult to just kind of get any kind of information about what was going on. And then I started seeing these pictures of the black man and headlines about Muslim related, and then I'm thinking, oh, well, that's why I probably haven't heard about it, because they're trying to mold the narrative. But it was even more than that. I wasn't familiar with who Sam Hyde was, and I get now that he is just some alleged alt-right person. There was a meme on 4chan. I don't go to 4chan. I find it to be a convoluted place. More power to you for the people that go there and are able to, procure your information that's legitimate. And I know there are a couple YouTubers that I highly admire, like Tracy Beans, who uses, I guess it's called Poll, like whatever. It's not someplace I'm going to go to get my information. It's more like it's a lot of information like this comes out. Everything you say has to be said with a grain of salt. Apparently this congressman Gonzalez didn't know either who Sam Hyde was, and ran with that. And it's interesting enough, their pictures of the Sam Hyde was a white guy. It's so easy. It just goes back to saying you can't go by anything you see online. And if I always post the links to the resources that I use. And he never would offend me by going and checking back and coming back to me and telling me that something was wrong, because I want to know. I wouldn't take it personally whatsoever. People make mistakes. Sometimes they're honest, and other times they're not. It's because people are just being either very sloppy with their work as a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I'm just like reporting what I find. Or they do it intentionally. Or some people, and trust me, I use sarcasm up one end, down the other. But there's a time and a place for everything. And if you are a professional journalist, or you're, walking around proposing to be something like this, and you're using sarcasm, but what you're doing is you're putting out disinformation, you're not really a comedian. You're not really helping anything. You're not being helpful whatsoever. To put out information like this, it's just not even funny. That's my opinion. So I go to the Daily Caller, and I find them to be a more reputable source. I just want to play this clip. Hopefully it plays without too much of a glitch, so you can hear what is being said about what happened. Again, this is a much more, in my opinion, organic flow of when something is not done with the hand of the deep state. Okay, just to read it, this was Sutherland Springs, Texas. This was a neighbor who was talking about the shots that were fired at the church and what he had seen.
Kevin lives here. He knows all these people. He used to go to church there. You heard the shooting. You ran inside. You protected your family. And then something amazing happened. Your neighbor went to save people.
Yes,
Tell me
did.
that part of the story. Tell me what your neighbor did to save this people and stop this.
Our neighbor, he's a very, very good guy, very big Christian. He's the nicest man on the planet. Will do anything for anyone around here. We've known him for, years. He's childhood friends of my dad. And we're all, we're out in the country. He came with a gun. Yeah, he came with his, and he took cover behind a car, and he shot the guy. I'm not sure if it was inside the church when the guy was coming out, but if it wasn't for him, the guy wouldn't have stopped. And then that's when the guy got in his vehicle and drove off, and our friend shot through the window.
Sorry, that's annoying.
Him trying to get him again, and then he apparently crashed down the road. But if it...
Okay, so, link in the description box to this again. But to me, that's a very organic, natural interview. I like to go to the local news too, because you can sometimes find that authentic response. There was definitely a different feel to the Vegas situation, whereas moments, and I literally mean moments, like within a few minutes of everything happening, it was all live, everything was out. The whole presentation and delivery of the Vegas shooting with Stephen Paddock rolled out much quicker and more organized, if you can understand what I mean when I say organized. I mean organized in such a fashion where they had facts, they had details, they had names, they had... Some people might say, oh, that's because it's Vegas and you have a different group of people. There may be some truth to that. You're going to say this is a small town. You don't have access to everything there. I mean, there might be truth to that, but I don't know. There's just something else in the energy of it all that depicts this as a more organic, natural event. Not that it's natural to go out and fucking assassinate everybody in a church, but you know what I mean, than the Vegas, where it was just, you're comparing similar events in a lot of regards, but yeah. So they're saying now that this was a 26-year-old Devin P. Kelly, and the 26 people are dead. That number, I think I've seen up to 28 so far. I read several comments about gun control now. It's going to be about gun control, although I noticed that even the comments about the gun control right following afterwards aren't as organized as they were after the Vegas event, after the Sandy Hook event. The presentations and push for gun control legislation was much more organized after those events as well. That's a telltale sign to me. I like the town hall too. They're a conservative leaning publication. Let me say something about gun control. Anybody out there who thinks for 1 second that removing firearms from people who legally procure them, if you think that things will be safer for anyone, you are sadly mistaken, because the bad guys are always going to be armed, like 100% of the time, like all the time. They're always going to find a way to be armed. And I'm sorry, you're not bringing a baseball bat or some nunchucks to a fucking gunfight and winning. It's not going to happen. All right, I'm getting off task. Let me play this one for you.
To help put a stop to it, with me here right now is Johnny Langendorf. He was driving past the church when he saw the shooting. And Johnny, can you tell me what happened next?
No, I pulled up to the intersection where the shooting happened, and I saw two men exchanging gunfire, the other being a citizen of the community. And the shooter of the church had taken off, fled in his vehicle, and the other gentleman came and he said we needed to pursue him, that he just shot up the church. And
now, if you see, like, again, this seems to be very organic. This guy seems like a real person, seems like somebody who you would really actually... There is eyewitness testimony faults all the time. Like, people can witness the same thing and you'll have 5 different people to say 5 different things. I'm not talking about that kind of credibility. I'm just saying that this isn't somebody who is a plant from some agency, you know, and you can just see that. I don't want to have to witness and experience like the organic things happening like this, because even with the organic things, I think there's an element of like MK Ultra, like people just they're just snapping left and right because they're just programmed and wound up like this. I mean, look at half these Antifa people out there now. They're so brainwashable, and they're brainwashed, and then you make a cocktail of events, a certain series of events, is just too much for people to handle, and then they snap and they do things like this because they've been conditioned to thinking that this is some sort of option, that this is something that they can go out and do, that this is something that's acceptable in some way.
so that's what I did. I just acted and got him off the road. And
Okay. All right, Johnny, it sounds like we may be having a little bit of a technical difficulty. I'm going to try to switch mics here. All right. Johnny, so could you tell me again, you said that you heard you saw the 2 men exchanging gunfire, and then one of the men, someone you recognized, jumped in the car?
No, I didn't know him at all. I didn't recognize him. He just was a member of the community. And whenever he came to my vehicle in distress and with his weapon, he explained very quickly what happened, and he got in the truck, and I knew that it was just time to...
It was time to go.
Yes, sir.
All right, so tell me about that. Tell me about following this guy. Was it high speed? Was he driving normally all over the place? What was it like?
No, sir. He got a little bit of a jump on us, and so we were doing about 95 down 539, going around traffic and everything.
I mean, I just think that this guy is going to be more credible than listening to a lot of the mainstream media paraphrase him. You always want to listen to things. This is still eyewitness testimony, but it's somebody who was there, you know.
Eventually, he came to kind of a slowdown, and after that, we got within just a few feet of him, and then he got off the road.
How did that happen? Did you guys bump him, or did he lose control by himself?
He just lost control, and then that's whenever I put the vehicle in park, because I was still on the phone with dispatch, and the other gentleman jumped out and had his rifle drawn on him, and he didn't move after that.
Okay, so I understand you guys called police as you were chasing him.
Yes.
Now, did you lead them to that point? Did they meet you there? Or
No, we led them to there. He was headed northbound on 539.
You know what I find interesting is we don't have anything like this with Jesus Compost, do we? You know, this kind of discussion. Jesus Compost wasn't so forthright in coming with giving information like this, now was he? You know, oh, and by the way, with that situation, even though he was shot, and all these reports said he went after talking with the police to the urgent care. Yeah, that never happened. He actually then allegedly got some treatment whenever he crossed the border or went back into Mexico. Different story, but let's move on with this one.
And everybody else was headed to the church, or all the officers were responding to the church.
so how long before police arrived at that scene?
From the time we actually stopped, it was about 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes.
And so the neighbor just kept his gun trained on him that long?
Yes, sir.
All right, was the man moving? Was he injured?
No, I don't know. We didn't get close enough. We
As a
asked him
gin
to get out.
infused with cucumber,
No
Hendrix is
response.
So what next? What happened once the police arrived?
Just the police arrived and they pushed us back, and then they took care of the rest. I didn't see anything after that.
All right, Johnny, what was going through your mind during this chase? I mean, you're chasing a shooter. You've heard he's just shot up a church in your hometown. What's going through your mind?
Try and get him, to get him apprehended.
You know, so for all of you people out there who are suggesting that we need less guns, how do you think that these guys would have even been able to take this guy down? You know, and it's not like I'm calling for your normal everyday citizen to, out of their normal zone, go out and chase down the bad guy. No, it's probably not going to be a good idea. But for those, and I don't just want to say men, because I'm sure there are women who would act with similar regard, but let's be real about it, you know? And I want to be real about it, because we fucking need all these feminazi motherfuckers out there who are just making all these men turn into these beta males to just knock it off because you're not helping anyone. So for the men who really, and women, who go out there, whose natural guard is you're strapped, you're going to, you know, you're taking care of you and yours and the bad guy. You know, I want these people armed. I want them to be armed to the fucking teeth. I mean, I'm armed, but if I'm standing someplace and some shit goes on, even though I'm armed, I would love others to be armed too, because I might not be the best shot. You know, that's because you know, everybody is responsible ultimately to take care of yourself. You know, yes, I'm pro law enforcement, and to enforce the law, you know, not to the crazy extreme of having, you know, martial law be called and all of our rights being taken away, because I think that's where the people pulling the puppet strings are trying to go with all of this. Law enforcement is actually our friend, you know. That's who you call when you need someone. This is what it's supposed to be. And whenever they can't arrive on the scene, you want people like this in your community who do.
Or whatever needed to happen. I mean, it was strictly just acting on what the right thing to do was.
Thank you very much, Johnny Langendorf. Again, this is Johnny Langendorf. He pursued after the shooter in his truck once he saw the shooter and a neighbor exchanging gunfire. The shooter, as we have heard, has been confirmed dead.
So there's that.
To help put a stop.
So there's that. Anyway, that's the news of that event. And they're saying that it is uncertain if he killed himself or he was killed by someone else. You know, I'd probably caution against a lot of people going out there and talking right off the cuff. This guy here who was talking, Johnny, seems like a very good guy. I wish the whole world was filled with people like him, really. Of course, you're going to have lawyers that are going to come out. Someone's going to want to sue somebody for saying something. Poor Johnny's going to probably be dragged into court to testify against something because someone's family member, someone's going to pull something like this and they're going to, you know, sue someone for killing their family member who went out there and shot something up. And you know what I'm talking about. So, at any rate, my knee-jerk reaction is this definitely wasn't some sort of hoax. It's just somebody who went off the rails. Probably somebody who seemingly drank the Kool-Aid, you know, drank the Kool-Aid. Links in the description box. Everybody have a safe week. Bye.